The economists will talk about inventory rising. Inventory can go up 1 trillion %. That doesn't cause a crash.
Correct.
Then people talk about days on market. Days on market can go up 1 trillion %. That doesn't cause a crash. Inventory and days on market means people are willing to sell and buyers aren't willing to buy. Where the crash comes from is the third metric that not everybody makes it to: forced sellers.
So, folks, we have been talking housing crash on this channel for the last 4 or 5 years. We have debated, we have indicated, we have talked about the accurate call for a transaction crash, which, again, we will take credit for. But I actually want to talk about how home prices, and I'll even be more specific, residential median home prices could fall in 2026. I want to talk about what has to happen the remainder of 2025 to set up 2026 to be a negative and potentially very negative year. I know there's lots of people calling for a housing crash in 2025. It is my belief that they, A, don't understand price elasticity, B, they don't understand timing and or lag, and they don't understand that we don't have the financial underpinnings of that fast of a crash. So again, 2025 does not seem likely, but if you want to sit here on May 21st and talk about how housing could really crash 5, 8, even 10%, I'm willing to talk about 2026. Let's welcome the three amigos to the show. Matt, you were here first. How you doing?
I'm doing super awesome. Happy to be here as always.
Absolutely. Well, let's also clean something up. You made a call for 2024 that we could potentially see the median home price fall. I think it was 8% or something.
10%. Yep.
Right. Yep. And that didn't happen, right?
You owe you a nice shiny dollar.
There. I trust I'm going to get we're going to get 100 pennies from you. I know how that's.
Oh no, I'm finding a way to get it in some other currency, like Canadian currency, where it's going to be like literally a
Zimbabwe dollar.
Zimbabwe coins.
Yeah. I expect nothing less from you. I expect nothing less. And Dion, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about this topic because this is the type of video when we make it, we get the most, I want to say, agreeable hatred in the comments.
Yeah. I just call it. I get so much hate. But again, I want to be very clear because I want to use my words so there's crystal clear. Median home price. Think Zillow, think Redfin. National home price decline. Residential. So I'm not confusing transactions. I'm not talking commercial. I just want everybody to realize, because I've played this game with everybody before and been right. But when I think about 2026, guys, I see a lot of the kindling for a problem, right? Where are we today, right? May 21st. Inventory is up, call it 30% nationally. Some markets more than that. Not everywhere, clearly not everywhere. The Northeast, clearly not there yet, but does seem to be growing. Mm-hmm. We've seen days on market go from, depending on what report you look at, 19 to 40. I think both of those trends continue. So again, what does that mean? That means active inventory, instead of being up 30%, might be up 50, 60, 70% year on year. And days on market might go from 40 to 65, 68 by the end of the year. Sure. That's the first step to a housing crash, in my opinion, is both of those continue to occur. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, rates higher for longer so far, right?
So far, yeah.
My call ended up being wrong. I am a firm believer that had Kamala taken office, I think I would have had a shot.
Maybe.
I think the market was really scared, and I honestly believe she had a real shot. I believe that she had a real shot to win. And so then, as I was far happier that she lost than I lost my dollar to you.
Yeah. I think you're doing okay.
But I think that if you look at it, I think you're exactly right. I think it's, rates are higher for longer. Mm-hmm. Inventory continues to grow. Mm-hmm. The spread that the banks have is getting wider and wider. They're not giving back what the Fed's taking away, or what the Fed's giving back. They're not giving that. They're not passing that along.
Yeah.
So margins that used to be 150 basis points or 275 or 300 or 3.25. Right. I have a loan that's had to be replaced 3 times. 3 times.
Yeah.
And it was because that institution no longer had the appetite for that type of a loan. Mike, when was the last time that happened? I don't remember.
Oh, that's been a while. Yeah.
It's been 15 years.
Yeah, a while.
It's been 15 years. So I think all of those things are right. And I think the other thing that we're really starting to see now too is, more layoffs. More layoffs are going to come. They're going to be bigger. They're going to be more aggressive. And I think those are all that's all part of the cycle, but I think what anyone should always learn is it's not going to happen as fast as you think.
Yeah.
That's wear through.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, one of the things that you learn when you study economics and then you study real estate for 30 plus years is it's far slower moving than most people think, right? Most people are, all of these crash bros and doomers, just everybody thinks it's the GFC. And it's like, guys, get your head out of your ass. It's an entirely different box of crayons. But, I can get there. I really can get to a housing crash in 2026 if these things start to happen. So I also think you're right that one of the sparks could be significantly higher unemployment. Let's get Dion in on this conversation. Dion, as you sit here middle of 25 and you look out to 2026, there's lots of things that could go wrong. What are some things you think about?
So first I'll start with, I am taking some action goals to set myself up to buy a property sometime towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. Awesome. So just like everyone else, I'd like there to be a crash. Mm-hmm. I think Graham, Stefan, and Meet Kevin are very smart when it comes to this type of video. They'll make a crash video and then explain why the crash isn't happening. So they get a lot of views because people want the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of a crash. But then the data that they put out says it's not going to happen. And so I'll take a mildly contrarian view, if you're okay with that.
So, no. Yeah.
Most economists will say these catchy phrases that make people think that there is a crash coming. And it's not even the crash bros, it's economists in general. Mm-hmm. For sure. And so we'll point out in the largest decline in market-wide prices in a 12-month period we've ever had, according to the 3-year spreadsheet now, mm-hmm. was 8.9%. And a crash, people say, is 20%, a correction 10%, whatever the definition is. So to get to a crash, we need what Matt pointed out, time. It doesn't happen as fast as people want. So 2026, 2027, could a crash happen? Absolutely. The economists will talk about inventory rising. Inventory can go up 1 trillion%. That doesn't cause a crash.
Correct.
Then people talk about days on market. Days on market can go up 1 trillion%. That doesn't cause a crash. Inventory and days on market means people are willing to sell and buyers aren't willing to buy. Where the crash comes from is the third metric that not everybody makes it to: forced sellers. How many people with the inventory on the MLS or for sale that have the days on market racking up have to sell? Because there's a lot of people that put a property out there and going, hey, if I get 800 grand for this, I'd walk away with a ton of money. Mm-hmm. Oh, they want to pay me 750. It's not worth it. I don't want to do it. I'll just keep it. It'll be my rent. It'll be my inheritance. It'll be my kids. I'll just live in it.
This is exactly why what you just pointed out is one of the main reason housing is slower, because again, you have two competing forces. You have sellers and you have buyers, right? It's called supply and demand. Mm-hmm. And what is not known between all the parties is who's truly motivated versus who has wish pricing, right? If you're in the market today and you have a buy box, I guarantee you have some properties been on the market 60 plus days and 0 price drops. My history says when that happens in a buyer's market, that's wish pricing, right? They're basically saying, to your point, if I get 800, I'm out. If I get anything less than 800, I'm staying. So again, you're absolutely right. This is why 2025 housing crash is unlikely. Just because, again, it takes 60 days, 90 days, then it takes 45 days to close. I want you guys to think about this. If you list your property today on May 21st, and you let it age out 90 days, you're now in August. Then you go through a 45-day close. You could be in October before that sale is recognized. Mm-hmm. So again, as soon as we get to like August, there's a good chance that those listings that age out don't close till 2026. That's just how this game is played, that these doomers don't understand, is the lag and the timeline in all of this. So you're absolutely right. And that's exactly why I'm willing to sit here today and go, you know what? We could have pain in 2026, but it's going to take a lot of things. So to your point, both your point, inventory has to grow and continue to grow. I think we all agree that when that happens, the percentage or the absolute number, not the percentage, the absolute number of motivated sellers also goes up. But the challenge is you got to go find them, right? Some of them will raise their hand and say, I'm desperate. Like the last buyer's market I saw, right in the first line of description, it will say, buyer will look at all offers. Signal, right? Mm-hmm. Sign. So again, where you guys are pointing out, that's the first kindling of a price crash in 2025. But we need more. We need more. Number two, I think, Matt, you brought this up. We need unemployment to get ugly.
Yeah.
Now, I think today we're at 4.2. So let's call ugly
6.
5. Yeah, 5.5, 6. Yeah, and it has to go fast. It's got to be there.
Some resistance there.
Yeah, I want you to. That's why we're here. But let me just
over 9% in 2007 and 2008 when we started having issues, and there was still a missing element.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that. So again,
adjustable rates. We had 51% adjustable rates on residential mortgages. So I think unemployment would have to get uglier than we've seen in 20 years because we don't also have the adjustable rates.
Yeah. So again, Dion, you're pointing out something that's very important, which we'll get to. So again, though, I think it's very clear. Unemployment, we basically have to create household stress. That's what we have to do. Unemployment. And it has to go up, and it has to go up fast. We basically have to scare the bejesus out of people. But again, that's, to Dion's points, not enough. This, again, is something that the doomers don't understand. Why did the Great Recession get so bad and get so bad quickly? It's because when to your point, 51% of loans reset, your housing cost, economic speak, shelter cost tripled. Mm-hmm. And it was 80% cheaper, 60% cheaper to rent than own this. Today, because of 2%, 3%, 4% mortgages, people's shelter cost is artificially fixed at low rates that it would be financial suicide to lose it. So Dion is right. It has to get bad, and it has to get bad for a long time. We've got to go from 4.2 to 5 to 6 to 6.5, and it just has to get worse and worse and worse. And time is the next leg. Dion, you want to riff on that some more?
I think there's the missing thing here is legislation. There's some changes that can happen in the legislation that can drastically impact it. Let's say we start experimenting like Canada did. They said no foreign investors for 2 years. Now they've renewed that every 2 years for 6 years now. So every 2 years we keep hearing there's this new thing in Canada where no foreign investors can invest. Well, what would happen to our housing market and our real estate, so even commercial, if new law came out and said, because we've already got, I forget if it's called the FERPTA tax or whatever. If you go to sell a property as a foreigner, you pay 15% of gross of the sale, not of net. Yep. And gross. So that makes selling not as attractive. But owning, storing your cash in it, investing here, something like that. We could see nationwide rent control. I mean, there could be, and we're talking a drastic swing in legislation. I don't think our current legislation, our current administration is on that track. But these are the type of things that would have to happen, outside of supply, demand, interest rates, unemployment.
Yeah. The other thing that's going to happen, and I want to shout out Melody, right, for pointing this one out. She's been right on this one for a long time, is there's a lot of fraud and abuse in the FHA mortgage market, which she's been pointing out for 9 to 12 months. So give her plenty of credit for that. That stuff's coming to market. The distressed inventory is going to go up. The way that this could lead to a price crash and really make 2026 bad is if it all showed up, not all, even if like 80% of it showed up in Q1, that could be a problem, right? Anytime you have just a artificial wave of new supply that's distressed, that could change the market overnight. History says that foreclosures at the state level vary widely. Some are quick, some are slow. Administration may or may not want to force these, but there is no doubt more distressed inventory is coming. There is no doubt that there is no equity in a lot of these loans. And there's no doubt that it was completely fraud and abuse that led to this. The question is, in my mind, is when does it show up? How fast and how many? Like, because if you get, I mean, there could be a market. I'll just pick on Houston, Texas, just random city I thought of. If you had, 1,000 properties come on the market one weekend that were all FHA foreclosures, that would be a problem.
Of course.
Right? That's one of the things that I saw in my market, Fresno, California, in the last crisis. At one point, 80% of the active listings, 80% of the active listings were distressed. So if you were the 20%, what do you do? Right? You're competing on with no strategy. So that could also be a problem. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, if there's 80% are distressed and you're not distressed, guess what? You're getting distressed pricing, because why else would anybody pay more? That's the first thing. Second thing is, when you look at those things, those assets that come available from the banks, don't think Joe homeowner is going to buy a bunch of those. It's not what's going to happen. It's going to make a bunch of investors a lot wealthier because we're ready, we're capitalized, and we're the ones that can get the loan on a bad asset like that. Like that's again how it works. Welcome to reality. It's the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer because the poor have no cash or assets. That's how it goes. And so the people with cash are going to get more assets that then create more capital. The good news is that the trickle down does actually exist and it does work. And for those libtards out there who don't think so, I have to hire a bunch of contractors to do this work. They are all blue collar guys. They are all making anywhere from 40 to 80,000 bucks a year. And they're going to get jobs to fix this and take care of that so that the unit and the asset can get back onto the market and then be a livable house again. So I think that the market's going to shift. It's slower than I expected, but Trump was the one who really helped that the most, because that bolstered a lot of confidence in the market. When he got elected, everyone was like, hey, now we're the pro growth guy. We're not with a program idiot. So pro growth, like, let's get on this train. So things, we'll see what happens with the tariffs as those continue to develop. We'll see how long some of them stick and if it creates more joblessness. But I think that, every 6 months that passes, we get that much closer on larger AI adoption. That's a world that I lived in for 17 years. And I think that there's more and more organizations deploying that to stem the tide of having to hire more people. Now, does it directly take out people out of the workforce? Not necessarily, but it means people trying to get a job, it will take them longer to get a job. And I think that's what's going to be more. Yeah, I think that's going to be more the effect is people saying, I just don't really feel like there's real jobs out there. That's going to continue because AI continues to replace a lot of blue collar jobs. And if your best talent is, let me Google that, I got bad news, bro. AI is way faster and way smarter and can pull from a lot more data.
Yeah. Well, here's the final match that could lead to a housing crash in 2026 that I've heard no one else talk about, but I lived through it last time and it could happen again. The banking system could be under stress. We could have a lot of kind of local banks fold, right? Because they have to mark to market their commercial deck or whatever it is. And they get gobbled up. And one of the outcomes of that is they could reinstitute that old rule of you can only get 4 conventional loans. Today, the answer is 10. I lived in a world that was 4. I actually lived in a world where if you are an investor, you can't get a loan, period, for about a year and a half.
Sure.
So, if we go through this cycle, unemployment skyrockets, unemployment duration extends, inventory doubles from where it is today, and then you get lending tight as a drum, that all can lead to a price crash. Because again, if all that happens, and Matt, this, the investors are the answer, but if we got to pay 10%, we just fundamentally can't do as well at 7%, right? We're just a numbers oriented group. So I think lending, if lending gets tighter for whatever reason, fraud and abuse, banking collapse, whatever, that could be the final nail in the coffin for home prices in 2026. Dion?
So 2 things. The first one is something that could actually help with the unaffordability of housing, right? Which is basically it's too expensive where people want to live. Yep. There's cheap houses all over. It's just not where everybody wants to live. It's the silver tsunami finding a legislative solution. I think if somebody in banking or the government that sets banking policy came out and said, hey, if you're over 65 and you have an interest rate under 4%, here's a loan product where you can downsize your house, buy another house, and under these specific circumstances, you're of this age, you own a house, you can buy a new one at the same interest rate. You have
loan. It's called loan portability, but yes, yeah,
portability, but based on age, based on the retiring boomers.
Yeah, you're
because right now they're trapped in their 4-bedroom house that they raise the kids in, that they normally would sell into a downsize, easier to clean, no stairs, less money, opening up a house for that person that wants to grow a family. So that's the missing element there. But the second thing is, let's say the crash happens, and I'll just use like a logic chain from Pascal here. If you guys have ever written, you're old enough to remember coding that far ago, but if then statements. If the crash, then what? Well, first step, you talked about lending going away could cause the crash, but if there is a crash, lending does go away. The lenders in 10, 11, 12, or said, why would we lend on an asset that's losing value? We would owe money. You would owe us money on something you could walk away from if it went down. So lending goes away. Second, you'll hear these two phrases over and over and over from all the people who right now are saying, if there was a crash, I'd go buy everything. One, they would go, I don't want to catch a falling knife. I want to wait for the bottom. And then for the people who felt that there was a bottom, they would start saying, oh, it's going to be a double dip crash. We've lived through that before. Those exact same words, lending disappeared. People said, I want to catch a falling knife. And then a double dip scream from 2009 to 11, all the way down to the bottom of 11. The people wishing for a crash won't buy.
Oh, no, there's no question. The people that have been waiting for a crash will absolutely not. And I say that with certainty because I've seen it time and time again. I've been doing this 25 years. But I know one thing, the three of us would buy a lot of stuff. There's no question there. There's a good chance if this crash happens in 26, I'll double my portfolio. So it's fine with me, right? It's funny. I was on a live stream with three guys. They called the deal champs, Strat, Dean, and Jason. And they asked me, Zuber, do you got one more good run in you? Because again, I'm 20 years older than these guys, right? They're still hustling and building portfolios and all that stuff. I'm like, if it happens in the next couple of years, you bet your ass I got one more good run in me. But all this stuff's got to be done by the time I'm 60. So that's 60 is a hell of a lot closer than I want to admit. But yeah, I got one more good run in me. Guys, let's wrap this up. Dion, we'll go to you first. Housing crash 2026, certainly possible. Lots of things need to happen between now and then. Closing thoughts.
Well, like you said, if it happens, I'll probably add some things to my portfolio. So I kind of hope it happens to do that, but I actually hope it doesn't because I don't want a bigger portfolio. I don't want more properties. And you can find me here on YouTube saying conflicting things like that. Dion Talk Financial Freedom every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. I do videos that tend to irritate people, like last night's where I talked about how people's dating expectations have messed up their investing in real estate.
I love how you tie these things together. Matt, again, I'm going to give you some closing thoughts, but let's really highlight an event coming up. I think it's in early May, or no, June, where you're going to be taking on 8 folks, 8-on-1. I'm not sure how that's fair, but I know you will crush it.
I don't know how it's fair for them. Raging Tomato. Sarah is the host. She's absolutely amazing. But the Raging Tomato, I did a small little guest spot on there. It was pure fireworks. It allows me to exercise the words that a gladiator in the arena would use. So it is not for the faint at heart. It is on late at night. There is a lot of cursing. Because it's not about civil discourse, because it's hard to argue with idiots. But
yeah, let me just
an amazing event. And I told Zub not to watch it, and I would understand his lack of support because it will stress him out. If he watches that, he'd be like trying to close out the comments on such a pace, he'd probably break his finger. It's awful.
I can't fix stupid. It just frustrates. I'm not going. I can't fix stupid.
Well, I'm more than happy to meet them in the arena and have a word battle because I'm happy to have a real battle if they really want to. But yeah, June 5th, the Raging Tomato. Check it out there. It's Sarah, the host, is spectacular. And there will be lots of fighting and the serving of libtard tears for drinks.
Man, you're amazing. Thank you for doing that. I'm really glad to know that there's a guy in my world that is willing and actually enjoys that kind of confrontation, education, beating. It's wonderful. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Mike.